The evolution of the GOAT is very interesting in many ways. I mean, first off, you have in the GOAT conversation nothing but an argument, which largely comes down to popularity. That's really what it is a popularity contest, but sometimes you'll try to be imaginative, and so many times you'll want to argue resumes. You're not wrong to do that. If the two athletes are never going to compete, if LeBron is never going to play Jordan, it's all that you're left with. But as I talk about the evolution of the GOAT, I'm hearing the argument actually changing. Look, in 1976, a boxing reporter out of Brooklyn, New York, is the one who coined the phrase pound for pound. Okay? As the author of the statement, he is entitled, under literary laws, to also define it if he chooses, and he did choose to. And what he said was, regardless of weight class, skill for skill, who could go in any weight and beat anybody else, and that therefore was his definition of the pound for pound. I've heard people attempt to change what pound for pound means over time, but you don't have that right. Poetic license goes to the author of the statement. So that's what you're left with. But the GOAT argument has really evolved. Think of it in this way. There was a time within this sport where you could not leave your division. That was not a rule or a policy or a commission overseeing it. That was just the way that Dana had. He thought everybody needed, we're doing divisions. And everybody's going to stay within their divisions. All of a sudden, Daniel Cormier, as the light heavyweight champion, bounces up to 205. Champ becomes a real thing. And off you go. So, that's not factually right, what I just said, is it? That is not right. Conor McGregor is the first to have done it. Okay, great. You still understand the point that until that was a thing, it wasn't a thing. So now if you look at the guys who attempted to do that and did it successfully, do they get a nod in the make-believe discussion of the GOAT? I mean, it does appear the GOAT that we are going to fiercely adhere to the rules that we make up on the spot, because if you make that a criteria, what about the guys that were around when that wasn't a thing? Or what about the heavyweight fighters of today who simply can never go down to a different weight class? I mean, do you see where this becomes a problem? If you're attempting for legacy reasons to win this fictional argument, but you aren't put in a position where you can ever win the argument, do you see where it becomes a problem? The world of amateur wrestling right now is a guy named Jordan Burroughs. I would put Jordan Burroughs as the second greatest athlete currently alive. I would put Simone Biles number one. I would put Jordan Burroughs number two, but you could probably argue that point. Jordan is a very, very special athlete. Jordan has never left his weight class. He's never been asked to. He's never been tempted to. He has absolutely stayed put. But within his career, everybody else has come and seen Jordan. At some point, Kyle Dake came down and saw Jordan. At some point, David Taylor came down and saw Jordan. At some point, Kyle Dake moved up, ran into Jaden Cox. At some point, Jaden Cox had crossed paths with Kyle Snyder. So Jordan Burroughs, while standing his ground in this one weight class, has actually covered four. He's the only guy who by proxy, has touched four different weight classes. Got his hand raised repeatedly, and he gets to go down as the great. But he stood his ground. And I do think if you were to look at the current rankings, and if you were to be one that argues you have to be able to change weight classes, you're going to have a very hard time when the current pound-for-pound list ranks Khabib Nurmagomedov at number one, who has never changed weight classes. If you don't agree with that and you think John Jones should be number one, who is currently ranked number two, if you think that's wrong, okay, fine, doesn't make a bit of difference. He's never changed weight classes. Now, I only offer you those by example, because why should a guy have to? If a guy finds his right discipline, I mean, how many things are you going to take from an athlete that's been very successful? If you tell Khabib, you can do what you do, but you can no longer do it at 155, even though that is his weight class. I mean, what else are you going to take from him? Okay, Khabib, here's the thing. You've done really great. I acknowledge you're really good, but you've always done it with Javier Mendez. I'm going to take your trainer away. Then let's see how good you are. And it seems as though you default back to a sucker's theory that we do see today when you have a striker versus a grappler, and the striker says, you're scared to stand and bang with me, as a way of goading a professional into leaving his best skill set behind, if that's what it is. You could do it in reverse. Hey, Damian Maia, How dare we go to the ground? How about you stand here with me? I mean, it's one of these really bizarre things that people will still attempt to do, but I would only ask, as the evolution of the GOAT continues, how many make-believe fixtures do you want to take from a guy? I mean, if you're going to take his weight class away, I'll take on be Jordan Burroughs. I take on all comers. I enter the tournament. You get a federation card and get on the scale. I'll take you on. Simple as that. You're red, I'm blue. Let's go. If he does that over a period of time and has this overwhelming level of success, who is to say that he has to change weights? For what? What would that be about? How would that affect whether he was great? Could it affect his resume? How many trophies he can win? Is that what we're doing here? I've heard that argument as we come back to Jordan and LeBron. I don't know how many LeBron's at now, but I remember hearing like LeBron's got 4 and Jordan has 6. This was a thing at one point. Might still be accurate. I don't know what that has to do with them going head to head. I'm not really sure what a guy's record would have to do with this set period of time. It's a very relevant thing. It's called an upset. You'll see a guy that everybody knows versus a guy people don't know. And all of a sudden, that's called an upset. What's that have to do? If they've never gone at it before, how do we have a frame of reference or understand what the result should be? It's just one of these things that as I watch the evolution happen of the make-believe discussion that has rules that we make up on the spot, should that really be one of them? And if it is, what do you do with the heavyweight? What do you do with the heavyweight, just by example, that has no ability to test his skills within a different class?